stays on. So that was the sound. So on the remainder of the training, we have the measurement of impacts, knowledge ecosystems, and a knowledge for societal change. Some colleagues and collaborators have graciously accepted this role for today's meeting. So Jonas Julsen and Jacob Dovkes van Rijs, Richard Schiphorst, and Gerlinde van Vilstra from Wageningen will also help us in bringing you this training. Next slide, Marcella. So for those, well, I'm assuming everybody knows CEE2ACT, but I really also always enjoy capturing the full picture, because CEE2ACT is all about empowering countries in the Central Eastern region and the Baltics to really contribute to bioeconomy strategies. This is something that is not new. It's already going on for quite some time. The uniqueness of CEE2ACT is that it really wants to promote it from the bottom up with a multi-stakeholder approach, driving exchange and collaboration also with other countries within the European Union membership, really promoting transfer, collaboration, and empowerment. On the next slide, you also see that within the bioeconomy, knowledge and knowledge transfer is really important, but you can interpret it very differently. And that is also that we really embrace during the CEE2ACT project, because there's not one definition. Because it is sharing knowledge with another person within an organization, between several organizations, and it's very unique. Therefore, we really want to emphasize that any transferring of knowledge is really based on needs and matchmaking. So there's a lot of knowledge, there's a lot of technology, there are a lot of insights available. That is not the problem. The issue is, do you know what's there? Do you know what's relevant for yourself, for your country, for your organization, or maybe even your markets? And how to really make that your own. And knowledge transfer, in our belief, is really that process of supporting the matchmaking process. So on the next slide, you will see that there are typical challenges related to knowledge transfer and building the knowledge transfer in relation to a firm, sound, consistent, and coherent bioeconomy roadmap. Earlier work within the CEE2ACT project, together with the partners, we have been identifying certain challenges on technology, on socioeconomic items, collaboration between stakeholders, capacity building, also governance issues. We have been, over the past 2 years, talking about those challenges, but also really how to address that within the specific context of the Central Eastern European region. We have been checking that. We want to also deliver recommendations on how to promote this further, replicate, upscale. We don't want to do this as a one-time job, but something that really helps after the project runtime and really being established in your own country's approach as well. So on the next slide, you will be seeing basically the whole set of knowledge transfer items, what we have been calling a menu approach that we have been developing in the CEE2ACT project. So because a lot of our elements in the whole project really connect to each other, there are no pillars or silos. A lot of the things that we are doing really intertwine with each other. So in the beginning, in 2023, there was already a building trust workshop series, because one of our main delivery mechanisms or operational mechanisms are the national bioeconomy hubs, of which many of you are either part or planning to become partner in. In the second year, we have been promoting the knowledge transfer series as a first course and side dishes, basically, which also had a workshop series too, that was in springtime last year. And also activities like a really big international site visit last September in Wageningen on site, really sharing and learning from peers and the examples from the Netherlands. We have been organizing webinars as well on knowledge transfer topics over the past year in February and June. And this is one of the elements that was remaining or still sitting there, the online training part specific to knowledge transfer. The project is not finished. We run in the whole of 2025. There will be a new workshop series. You probably have been invited to your own country, one coming up somewhere between March and April. which really drives the building of the national level roadmaps towards bioeconomy. And we will be knitting everything together in our regional events that flag the ending of CEE2ACT, which hopefully, well, we are working very hard to make that a great legacy in the uptake of anything circular bioeconomy in the region, driving the European future. Just as a nutshell, we have been documenting and making accessible all the things that we have been developing together with the partners, and what were the outcomes of the different knowledge transfer activities. So if you go to the website CEE2ACT.eu, you will be finding everything there as well, including recordings and a great movie displaying what we really can achieve together. Having said that, let's deep dive into the training module. It's in two parts, and this is the second. Between the first and the second, we did decide, so let's make the second also accessible to non-partners. The first one was really geared towards identifying knowledge transfer skills and competences within themselves and the ecosystem. And the second training really wants to equip all the participants with the selected knowledge transfer skills that are very relevant and deemed interesting to really effectively manage, promote, and catalyze knowledge transfer and bioeconomy. So, and we also wanted to give it a little bit of a formal touch. If you have been participating to both modules, or if you are a non-partner, if you are also completing our profile, knowledge transfer profile, which come up in a minute, then you will receive a certificate of participation. So you can also show it off and acknowledge that this is a good conversation starter and an important topic within your own work. Having said that, just a really brief view, because there's a lot of information I'm now going to share. Don't worry, you can all read it back up. But for sure, knowledge transfer compasses a lot of skills and competences, and we just wanted to give you an overview of how we have been developing it together with the partners. So the first category is really all about strategic planning and alignment. What is needed in the long run? How can you track that? How can you ensure that you're doing the right things, basically? The second topic is actually more about communication and collaboration. How to make that effective. That, of course, goes wider than knowledge alone, but it is so essential because you need to be able to understand each other. So fostering this collaborative culture and building trusting relationships is not only useful for knowledge transfer, but to the whole collaborative way of working in specific, which is, of course, already being addressed in the hubs. As a third topic, which is very important in the knowledge domain, is there are quite some aspects around intellectual property or legal issues that are sitting around technology developments, novel developments, etc., etc. And understanding how that's being dealt with and how it can work in your favor as an organization, but also as a hub or a country, is really important, including the familiarity with legal frameworks. And the caption is blocking my side, but there is also the part about the building the bridges. On the fourth side, data management and analysis is well, of equal importance within the skill set, really being able to develop competences in data management, very conditional or supportive topic surrounding the effectiveness of knowledge transfer. On the fifth category, it really is about how to create this innovative, forward-looking, front-running attitude within research and development and innovation from a more ecosystem or systemic perspective is incredibly useful to address. As a sixth topic, the more traditional or easy to understand or in front of your mind way of thinking about knowledge transfer is about training, education, capacity building, how to design and perform trainings, but also how to address if identified any existing skill gaps and how to approach that, which is of course very much a topic for today. Final but not least, are performance metrics and impact measurements. Like I said, if you have a strategy, you also need to be aware if it's delivering the impact that you're looking for, and also trying to mitigate any impact that is not going in the direction you are searching for. Having said that, we have been translating those considerations about knowledge transfer into a profile. Because, okay, so having said that, what about your skill set? Not only that one of yourself, but also of your team, your organization, and of the national bioeconomy hubs. Everybody who has registered to this meeting or have been participating in the first module has seen how we are trying to invite you to fill it out for yourself, for your organization and your hub. We've created a 5-point ranking system. It's a little bit intuitive, and there is no wrong answer, basically. We did put in some explanation of what scoring does mean, but it is much more about making you very aware and create a conversation starter with others, because it's not necessary that you personally have every skill that is needed or desirable within knowledge transfer. You don't need to be the Superman, basically, because it's much more important that you are aware of how your organization sits across those skills and how your hub sits, because you complement each other. Making use of each other's strengths is much more viable than trying to make everything scoring 5 in your own organization. So that's why we have designed a profile, and that is also how we are working with it. So we did that during the first module with the partners. You can see here a snapshot of what it looked like. And like you said, so we didn't want you to be the Superman or Superwoman, but there was already this recognition that some skills are present across the members. Really great. And some are already explicitly focusing on certain skills to be developed, like in research or others, which met an earlier self-assessment based on bioeconomy expertise. That's also great. And then we see that in those initial conversations, it does point out towards the opportunities for collaboration a lot more. Having said that, we also created an average or scoring, because if you're working with a 5-star skill, you can do some math, basically. And there you can see, just in a nutshell, it's very intuitive. On the right-hand side, color-coded between green and reds, which one are scoring a little bit higher than others. And we use this type of scoring to see how it pans out across partners, across people, but also this has helped shape this specific second training module. Just to acknowledge, because again, a lot of information in a nutshell, the full training, the full knowledge transfer domain is not only sitting within the 13 skills we just mentioned, because it also has other key success factors we already have been addressing in our strategic document for knowledge transfer. This is just a reminder that moving forward, integrating knowledge transfer elements can be one of the key success drivers in both designing and implementing your own bioeconomy strategy, whether on personal level, organization level, hub level, or national level. So having said that, I want to close my intro at this moment, and just two practical notes. The first one I mentioned, if you connected a little bit earlier, the attendees are currently not able to speak or show their video because you are in webinar mode. So a lot of interaction. Please use the chat function as well. If you have, during any presentation or any interaction, a question, a comment, a suggestion, or thought that you want to share with anybody, please feel free to do so. We are very welcome. Both Marcella and Vera are keeping an eye on the chat and are at the disposal to answer any questions. And also, of course, Jonas, Jacob, and in the later stage, Richard and Gelinda will be able to answer any questions or respond to any suggestions you might have in that aspect. So please feel free to do so. The other point, I see that the slide deck already is gone. So Jonas and Jacob will be using Mentimeter as an interaction instrument at the end of the presentation. And to avoid a little bit of a technical delay, we want you to invite you, if you want, to already go to Mentimeter on your mobile device or on a other browser in your internet screen. So you know that you are connected already, and then Jonas and Jacob can launch their sale. So we put the code in the chat as well, and for sure hope to see you there as well. Jacob, Jonas, I'm not sure who is launching, but I'm ready to give you the floor.
Yes, I will be sharing my presentation. 1 second. And presentation mode. Does this look okay? Hilke or someone?
Yeah, perfect. Please move ahead. Your time is ticking.
Yes.
We're right on the clock, so
perfect. So yeah, as Hilke mentioned, we are going to have a session about measuring the impact of knowledge transfer and how that relates to the work that we've been doing in CEE2ACT. And we've already covered our names. It's me, Jacob, and my colleague Jonas, and we work in a department at RISE in Sweden called Societal Transformation, and we work with basically the type of questions regarding sustainability and transformation of society that we talk about a lot in CEE2ACT. So I guess that's why we're here today. Content-wise, we'll actually go back a little bit to previous activities in the project to basically just have a brief background and a reminder of where we're coming from. And then we'll go into a little bit about learning and impact in complex systems, as the bioeconomy area very much is. And then we'll try to kind of highlight challenges and working methods with a couple of examples. And then finally, we'll try to kind of wrap it all up and try to come to some kind of conclusion about what this actually means for knowledge transfer in general, but also for CEE2ACT and the national bioeconomy hubs that you all have been part of developing. So the first part is just to go back to what we actually covered in the knowledge transfer strategy that we published quite some time ago. And for those that remember and have read that report, there are a lot of overlapping both challenges and also opportunities for all CEE countries. And that is just exemplified with the table here to the right, where all partners basically just picked their main challenges, and as you can see, it basically covers all parts of society. And we're not going to go into detail there, but the point is that there is a lot of overlap between basically all project countries, which makes collaboration, common learning, drawing from each other's experiences, etc. That Hilke mentioned also a little bit about. That makes that even more important. And if we're allowed to refer a little bit about the actual literature on implementing sustainable change on a system level, so so the bioeconomy system, for example, that is very much about the need of including relevant actors, networks, institutions, and other types of collaborative areas to, again, allow us to develop as a group of people. It's just not just one company or organization that need to make the transition to sustainable practices. It's very much a societal issue. But in terms of measuring the impact of knowledge transfer, that means that there are quite many ways you can actually do that. So there's no one size fits all type of thing. But it also is equally important to actually have some kind of shared vision or goals or statement of missions that you kind of try to adhere to when doing exact measurement is challenging. Yes, and now I will hand over to Jonas.
Thank you, Jacob. Hi, everyone. It's nice to be here and talk about this. As Jacob said, I work at the Rice Research Institute, and I have also a background working with the Regional Innovation Initiative, sort of a cluster, bioeconomy cluster in Sweden. I will tell you a bit more about that and give a few examples from that experience. But I will start with just giving an introduction to measuring development or transformation of more complex system, and partly from a Swedish perspective, of course, but a lot of general applicable observations can be made. And if you look at this from an overall innovation policy perspective, you can observe that initially, if you go back a couple of decades, innovation policy focused very much on R&D and support of R&D and regulations. Later on, it was acknowledged that you needed to work with the innovation system in a different way. There was a lot of focus on national systems and innovation. Entrepreneurships and startup companies were acknowledged, and incubators to support these companies were established. And perhaps you can say that now a third frame of innovation is developing, where you stress the system transformative nature of innovation. And it's not to say that one or the other is strictly better, but that they address innovation and system transformation in different complexities. Next, please. And one way to define transformation is what you see here, the irreversible or long-lasting change of values, ethics, and related behavior of a society, triggered by the need of tackling a specific societal challenge. So in a sense, the broad transformation from a fossil-based economy to something else, which is partly a bio-based economy, definitely has aspects of societal transformation on a systemic level. And the challenge here is that you cannot control this whole system. You are, as one organization or individual, to the left part of this picture, where you have a direct impact, you can influence things. But what we are interested in is the system change that appears to the right in this picture. And there is no one single individual or organization who has control over that. There is no ownership of the processes that are needed to achieve the transformation, but the impact is larger and more important. And what we want to do is to work sort of with the full scope. And if we measure only the desired impact when we want to measure our progress, if we measure only the desired impact, that's of course useful. But it doesn't help us to tell what should we do, because we don't know the exact path from where we are to the change we want to achieve. So that means we have to take partly a different approach. Next, please. And one key focus shift is to move from striving for and measuring the demonstrable impact to strive for and measure also aspects such as collaborative learning, adaptation, strengthened system functions, and core principles, which are not the final impacts that we want to achieve, but things that we know helps us to move towards that change. Next, please. I think you can click a number of times. So again, that this approach to innovation policy or change policy, transformation policy has developed over time. It's not to say that, again, that the first one is better or worse than the last one, but they have developed in capability to deal with complex problems. You can move ahead, Jacob. And ideally, we would want to use all of them. So I will give you just a few examples on what we could mean by these things. For example, work on principles. And this is an example from an organization called Center for Public Impact. I have no affiliation with them. I just think it's an interesting example. Their approach is to not rely solely on predetermined rigid metrics, but focus on adherence to guiding principle. So not to measure the final result that they want to achieve, but instead work with a number of principles. And their principles is seek out strengths and build on them, think systematically, act locally, share power with those best placed to act, challenge unnecessary hierarchy and collaborate across boundaries, and champion the voices of those who are heard the least, and optimize for learning rather than control. So their idea is that if we support these principles, we will have a better capacity to move in the direction that we want. So if we measure how well we support these principles, then that helps us in the development. Next, please. Another example from technical innovation systems research, which we have used in designing the knowledge transfer strategy in CEE2ACT, is to look at research which has studied the development of innovation systems and noticed that there are a number of processes or functions that are needed for successful development of innovation systems, such as knowledge development and diffusion, ability to do entrepreneurial experimentation, to materialize things in facilities, in production units, and so on, to mobilize resources, to achieve a legitimacy and acceptance of new solutions, to influence the direction of search to make several organizations and individuals move in the same direction, and to form markets. So that's also functions that you could work with to support innovation. Next, please. And I don't expect you to read all of this. I think the slides will be available, but there are some thoughts on different evaluation of the different modes of innovation system policy, where, for example, traditionally, the traditional evaluations want to render a definitive judgment of success or failure, whereas transformative innovation policy evaluations wants to help to inform and refine the transformation process, the directionality, societal goals, and system impacts, and so on. Next, please.
Yes, and to kind of link to what Jonas just talked about, we figured it would be nice with a as clear example as possible. And let's assume that we then try to implement a new biomaterial that has reduced carbon dioxide impact. Then you could actually calculate that impact and compare it with some other material that you substitute. And that can be quite insightful in terms of measuring how good the material is, for lack of better words. And you can even expand that to include, for example, social and behavioral aspects like income, work opportunities, etc., to make it more holistic. The slight issue with this type of approach only is that it doesn't highlight the entire ecosystem. It highlights part of the change that we want to achieve. But then if we go to the systemic or societal change, you can actually combine that, so you don't replace that type of calculation with this, you combine it with more overarching activities or guiding set lines or whatever you would like to call it that we already talked about, like having a collective vision, having clear statements, etc., that you want to follow over time, and you can call it principles, like Jonas did, or you can call it. There are many different names for approximately the same thing, but the essence of it is that you agree upon something together beforehand, and you evaluate that over time, and try to ensure that most or all of your activities kind of contribute to that path. And just to link back to what we've actually done in CEE2ACT, I would like to claim that we are actually measuring systemic change in CEE2ACT. We're very much doing a mix of calculations. We're doing kind of high-level discussions and trying to drive the agenda through stakeholder interactions and such. And we're also, as far as I can tell, trying to learn from each other and dare to kind of experiment and get it wrong and get it right as a group and as a project. And the focus in most of our activities, as far as I can tell, is a mix again of providing kind of useful and very much understandable knowledge, like numbers and exact data and such, while also promoting the type of kind of soft knowledge like inclusivity and innovative thinking and learning from each other, etc. And now we'll head into some, or at least a couple of examples from Sweden. So Jonas, go ahead.
Yes, and being a bit mindful about the time, we'll be quite quick over this, but stop at maybe some bit more interesting points. I will talk about an innovation program, a Swedish innovation program called Vinväxt. It's composed of the words win and growth in Swedish. And you can skip to the next slide, which was a program where regional innovation initiatives could sort of compete, hence the notion of defining winners, and the prize would be a 10-year funding for developing the regional innovation environment. And there you see on the map a number of winners, and I worked for a number of years with one called the Biorefinery of the Future, which was a regional initiative to develop the biorefinery cluster innovation environment. Next, please. And in that, innovation researchers following that and doing research on the program identified a number of system effects that were interesting to evaluate during the program. And they're similar to the functions we discussed recently. You could just skip ahead. These are just examples. So could take on the next slide as well. Or if you go back one.
Oh, sorry.
Exactly. So to give you very concrete examples on the setup of an evaluation of that program, it was based on first an ex-ante evaluation before this 10-year program started. Then there was a regular continuous evaluation with meetings between the leaders of the initiatives and also with an external reviewer who had not the role to tell them if they're strictly doing good or bad or right or wrong, but to be a support in their learning with an external view. Then there was a yearly quantitative data collection, but also qualitative data collection and dialogue meetings to enhance learning between partners. Next, please. And every third year, there would be an international evaluation with an international expert group. Again, not only to tell if they how well they achieve their targets or not, but to give an even more external outside view on the progress and work as a dialogue partner for the initiative to develop and learn. And then after the close of the 10-year project, there would be an evaluation on the system effects. So next, please. And this is just to give you an example of the kind of data that was collected in the evaluation of this program. And that was, just to remind you then, a program for developing the regional innovation system. And of course, that would be then the indicators targeted towards that. So it would measure things as participating companies, participating researchers, new products or prototypes or processes developed, new companies or patents, but also a more qualitative description of developed infrastructure, any new investments in the area. Were you able to set up regional meeting arenas? How has the competence supply in the arena developed? Issues such as sustainability, gender equality, internationalization, communication and marketing was annually described in the evaluation in a qualitative way. Next, please. And to also capture the aspect that there is some part that you have control over. The leadership of this regional initiative had control over their project and what they did. So that's called the layer 1 in the evaluation. What was it that they did? What kind of funding did they attract? And then in the second layer, that would lead to other projects. So in the layer 2, you measured, okay, what other projects, initiatives has this led to? And in number 3, in the layer 3, you also included, okay, so what have other organizations, stakeholders, what has happened for them? Have they also started projects? What are they doing in relation to what you are doing? And in the layer 4, you surveyed events that you could not directly connect to the actions of the initiative, but were still relevant and where the initiative maybe or maybe not had an impact. So this is to capture all the uncertainties from the very part that your project actually had an influence on to the wider impacts, which you maybe directly or indirectly influenced, but it's very difficult to tell exactly how that influence happened. Back to you, Jacob.
Thank you. So there's a lot of information there, and feel free to obviously go back in the recording and such. There's a lot of interesting things to learn, I'm sure. But what to actually, take home from this for all of you that are listening today. This is one way of kind of summarizing it. The fact that true impact from knowledge transfer and measuring impact from knowledge transfer is about understanding how and when organizations and stakeholders thrive in this super complex, super challenging environment that we're all trying to navigate in. What do we actually need? What is impactful in terms of specific knowledge points, etc. So if anything, this type of message is probably what you should remember from today or from this presentation. With that said, we would just like to kind of encourage you. This is nothing that you need to do. This is just kind of a couple of guiding questions of what you could do or think about as an organization. So what do you need to do as an organization? What type of data or information do you need? What type of system functions, as we call it, so technologies, actors, networks, etc. do you need to interact more with to basically make the progress for the bioeconomy sector faster, and a couple of the others here that I will just leave for you to read afterwards. But basically think and challenge you to try to come up with new ways of thinking and interacting with relevant stakeholders in order to make this sustainable change happen. Okay, circling back to the beginning, we have a Menti. So feel free to use the QR code here or to use the code to the left. And it's just one question in the word cloud, so feel free to write anything. There are no right or wrong answers. And I will bring up the Menti Cloud in a second here, once hopefully most people have joined. Could we send the code in the chat again, please, someone, in case there is anyone that missed it from before? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and bring up the Menti. I hope that's okay. Here we go. I think you can see my window here. Yes, there's a lot of innovation, obviously forestry. Yeah, it's necessary for sure. That I would fully agree with. Time consuming, that's a very good point. Which is very much about picking the right processes and what is actually relevant. Zero waste, for sure, that's a very important key thing. Yeah, there's a lot of good things here, and I think everything is right in a way, and that is what makes it so much both challenging and fun. You never run out of things to discuss and talk about. But with that said, I think you can see these results in your phones or in your browser, so feel free to continue to fill in words and read what everyone else has written. I think we'll open up for a couple of questions. We have a few minutes left, I think. And I will stop sharing my screen so that I can see you all. And thank you for the for listening. And I hope it was fun.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jacob and Jonas. So, but there was a response in the Q&A section that related to the Winwaxt example, Jonas, you presented, and they kind of were wondering how the evaluation process went and looked like in the selection. Can you address that a little bit?
I can address that a little bit. I started to write, but it was quite a big question.
Yeah.
Thank you. And a very good question, Piotr. And I can give you a short answer and let's continue the discussion elsewhere. I mean, the setup of the evaluation was given by the funding agency. But as I said, there was one evaluation done at the start of the project to help define each individual initiative. And then there was, for example, annual collections of information. And I gave some examples of the kind of information collected in my presentation. And practically speaking, the funding agency would provide a template, in this case, an Excel-based template, quite extensive, for the management of the individual initiative to fill in. And that would also develop over the year. So in dialogue between the funding agency and the initiatives, the sort of evaluation template also changed over the year to become more and more useful. The funding agency also recruited the international evaluators, but also, of course, taking in ideas from the initiative, who could be an expert in your field, and gave them a sort of evaluation format. And of course, there's no room to go through all of this and exactly what kind of questions and so on. But if you would like to, you can contact me, and I would probably have some material to share with you, so you can see a more practical example of that. I hope it at least answers partly the question.
Thank you very much, Jonas, and feel free to further reply in the Q&A section on that specific one. Really spot on the time. Marcella, if you can launch the presentation, because we're going to welcome Richard's contribution, Richard being a colleague with us here at Wageningen, and he will be introducing himself as soon as we have been launching his slides. Yeah, one further, I think. Thank you. So Richard, you know how long you have time-wise, so please take the floor.
Hello. Not too long, and I won't be going into too much legal details. I'll just introduce myself first. Next slide, please. Who am I and what is my job description? My name is Richard Schiphorst. I'm responsible for the legal counsel at Wageningen University Research for the Animal Sciences Group, which includes the department of the university and 3 research institutes. So my legal view is mostly from generating knowledge and getting that knowledge practically applied. Subject of this presentation is IP management and legal framework. In other words, what can you do with research results or new knowledge from an intellectual property or standpoint? Next slide, please. What is intellectual property? Well, all new knowledge you generate is intellectual property. But intellectual property is not protected by any rights. Anybody can use the intellectual property of another party. But some knowledge, some new knowledge, is actually protected by IPR rights, intellectual property rights. And there are different types of intellectual properties. You have patent rights, you have copyright, trademark, design, database, which actually falls within copyrights, trade secrets, and those are the most important ones. There are small deviations, but from a researcher standpoint, these are the most important ones. What is protected versus protectable IPR? Well, protected IPR is protected as of the moment you develop it, you think of it, or you put it on paper. And especially the authorship is a very good example. As soon as you write a publication, the moment you write it, it is automatically protected. People can copy it, but are not entitled to use it for commercial purposes. So you immediately have a right. The same as with software. Software is considered writing. Software code is written code, just in another language. So software is also automatically protected. You have automatically protected IPR, or you have IP you have to protect by filing it, like a patent. If you have developed something new or a new idea, that's not automatically protected. So you can file for a patent application, and then it's protected. And if it's protected, just a moment, I'll get something in my screen. And if it's protected, you can prevent other people from using it. That sounds counterproductive for developing new research and new applications, but it gives you the right to control what other people do with your idea and how they apply it. And also, it can keep a specific research fields exclusive for you. If you own the new idea, you can do the new research on it. And other parties will have to get a license from you to use it. Another very important aspect is the commercial side of it. If you can license your new idea to a company or an organization who's better at using it and making it a commercial success, you as a researcher can profit from it by earning license fees or royalties, which you can further use to develop your new idea or develop newer ideas. So that's a very important one from a researcher's standpoint. If you grant a license to a commercial company, you get money back and can put that into research again. Universities also tend to have a portfolio of patents to show how good and how innovative they are. Just by showing, well, we have patents in this field, so we are excellent researchers in this field. So having patents has different points of view why you would want a patent and why, on the other hand, you wouldn't want a patent. If you have something you want to have broadly accepted and used, well, then you shouldn't file a patent. Just leave it in the open, publish it, and everybody can use it. But sometimes it's better to have it protected so you can control the use. Difference between ownership and user rights. In most collaborations, especially with financiers or grants, there is a discussion who is the owner of the results. An owner has the right to freely use the results. But like with renting a house, you can rent the knowledge. License, user rights is another word for renting the right to use it. And depending on how far your license goes, the owner is either not allowed to use it, or you are allowed to use it in a certain country and another party is entitled to use it in a different country or a different field. I mainly work for the animal sciences group, so you can have the right to use it in pigs, and another company can have the right to use it in cows. So you can make a difference in the user rights, and that's very important to know when you start a collaboration, who is interested in what type of use. So you prevent that partners are not collaborating, but actually working against each other. So it's very important to know beforehand, do you want to be the owner of the results? Do you want a license on the results? And what does every partner want to do with the results? Dissemination or publication, very important for a university and researchers. If you grant the ownership to another partner in the collaboration, or you have licensed it out or transferred it, sold it in whole to another party, that doesn't prevent you from being able to publish the results. Make arrangements and keep it in mind before you grant a license or before you sell your knowledge, to have arranged that you can publish your new knowledge, so everybody knows what the new invention is. And if it's protected by IPR rights, they're not allowed to use the results, but at least they know the new developments in your field. So that's a very important issue to keep in mind. Publishing is not restricted by the owner of the results. You can make deviations with your partners in those arrangements. In collaborations, it might be very important to know who your collaborators are and what their wishes are. But also, before you start searching for partners or searching for subsidies or grants, you have to make sure for your own organization, what do we want to do with the new knowledge? Do we want to keep it confidential and only for our own organization to use it? Do we want partners to use it? Or do we want to have the whole world without restrictions have the right to use it? Because that depends on who you will select as partners. Do you want partners? Do you want industry to be involved? Who will finance the project? So be very aware beforehand, before you start looking for financing or partners, what do you want to do with the new knowledge you want to develop? And if you have new knowledge developed, which you might or might not have foreseen when starting your research project or your collaboration, make sure you know what your rights are under your contract, your grant or subsidy, because every project is different, and you might think that you are allowed to use the results or publish the results, but the fine print in the subsidy grant says, well, you need permission from the granting authority before you can publish it. Well, you need to be aware of that if you have new knowledge developed. Next slide, please. I also give project leader trainings within Wageningen University, and one of the main points I want to address is, if you need legal support or other support, know where to find them. They are your easiest contact. If you have knowledge, new knowledge, and you don't know how you can protect it or what to best to do, or what is in your subsidy grant, or how you can utilize it, contact support and business developments or legal support or KTOs. They can help you with determining what you can do with the new knowledge. Or if you see a new knowledge which is not your property, you read about it and you want to use it, they can help you obtain a license and contact the owner of the knowledge. Okay, that went a bit quicker than I expected.
Yeah, that's good. We have some room for questions, and definitely there's some happening. But just to take a little bit of a forward shot there, because I know, asking you, so what would be your most common question you get as a legal counselor? Like this is something like top of mind.
Yeah, the two questions which pop up the most. I have developed research results and developed something new, but the partners claim that they co-own or own it. How is it arranged in the contract? The legal documents in the subsidy grants and the small print in those mostly are legal language, and it's hard to read. If you have questions about it, contact somebody with experience in it and have them check the grant or the contract to check what are your rights and what can't you do with the results. The other way around, if you see new knowledge, mostly the questions is I get, this is published, can I freely use the knowledge I've read? And then we go to a patent search, or we contact the publishing author. How far can we use the results you have published? And don't make the mistake to think, well, it's published, it's free. But because you put in then a lot of time in doing the research, and then at the end finding out you're not allowed to use your results because there was a patent pending. So make sure any new developments you pick up are free to use. or under what conditions you can use it.
So you already addressed a couple of times during your tips, basically. Huh? So it really matters. Consider what you want to use it for, etc., etc. So there is a question related, basically, by Piotr Jurga in the Q&A. So on top of mind, what would be situations where patenting is not the best solutions and alternative forms should be considered? Huh? It's also related to collaboration. If you have the hubs with a lot of different partners being involved without a contract, because it's just at the moment nothing formalized. There's no contract between them at the point. Should there always be this level of protection there? Of how what would your response be in such a situation?
The initial thought about protecting new knowledge is making it interesting for parties, and that is universities, financiers, and governments to have new developments, because you can earn money from it. That is the basic thought about protecting new knowledge. Because if you make money from new knowledge, it is interesting for other parties to invest in getting new knowledge and making money out of that. So it's an economic way of promoting doing research and getting new knowledge done. On the other side, if you have new knowledge protected by a patent, it may hamper the broad use of such new knowledge. And from a researcher's standpoint, what you want is having your new application, and especially if it's applicable in a broad sense and is good for the world, you want to have it used as much as possible. But if you need further development to get the knowledge applied, then if you make it free to use for all parties, it is less interesting for the industry to invest money in further development. So if you have a patent, you might it is more possible that you get further funding for further development. So it's a toss-up between making it economically sound to invest in further research, then you need a patent. And if you want to have it applied as broadly as possible, I wouldn't advise to patent it.
Yeah, thank you for that snapshot advice. There is also this other part. You addressed a couple of items that could be protected or have that knowledge production feel to it. And Sophia Martins wondered, up and coming, so machine learning or artificial intelligence driven models and tools, those are a little bit newer happening, basically, could be very difficult to protect or to evaluate from the two aspects you mentioned, so open use and commercial interest. So what is your take on that development?
If an AI developed or thinks of something new, it is at this moment at state of the art of the AI, it is not developed by the AI, but it is created by the input questionnaire. So the party who puts in the questionnaire to the AI is actually the party who develops the new knowledge. That's the standpoint from an IPR standpoint, but from a user standpoint, you have the license agreement, which allows you to use the AI. And that might be a whole different view on it, because they can say, the owner of the actual AI program can say, well, anything new developed with my AI is my ownership. So be very aware whose AI you use and under what conditions.
Yeah, so you already addressed the wider importance of IP. So C2ACT is definitely about supporting and empowering stakeholders and creating those national strategies. And we firmly believe knowledge is a big part of that, whatever size of interpretation you have. So what would your take be on IP and that legal aspects to really accelerate bioeconomy? It's a big question, but really interesting to hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah, I would go back to my earlier comment about how far is your development of the new knowledge? Is it already practical, applicable? Then if you want to have it applied in a broad sense, don't patent it. Publish it, make it as widely known as possible. But if you need further development, and mostly further development costs a lot of money, you need investors. And investors are most of the time only interested if they can have a return on investment. And in those cases, you need to protect the knowledge to have invested further develop the knowledge you have. So it depends on your perspective on how far is it developed and what is your need to get it further developed.
Okay, sounds good. So at Wageningen and also at RISE, because we checked, we are in the blessed situation that we have those well-trained, skilled legal counselors. For sure, that is not everywhere. Or if you're a smaller organization or a cluster organization or a smaller business, legal speak is hard.
Yep.
You mentioned the small print. I know you can't say what would be your top tip for some legal speak, how to go about that if it's not your skill basically, and not within your organization. How can you provide some support there basically on how to pursue those more legal trajectories?
Yeah. If you have a bit bigger organization but no legal department, find somebody with experience. Find a senior researcher who has dealt with these kind of issues. Mostly it's based on experience on what options you have. If you have little experience, you see little options in what can I do with the new knowledge. If you're a smaller organization, find somebody in your network outside your organization who can help you. And if it's really legal, see that you can hire a patent attorney or a lawyer who's experienced in IP issues. Not a general lawyer, but one who's actually skilled in IP issues.
Yeah, reaching out. It's also advocating. You don't have to be a big legal speaker yourself, but definitely catching up with somebody who has that skill set available. Definitely, thank you very much on that aspect. I'm just checking to see if there are any new questions popping up from the chats, or do you have a final thought or like an afterburner to give to the people from the who are listening in now, Richard?
Yeah, but before you involve third parties, as I already said, keep in mind what is the interest of you or your organization in the development of the new results. Before you contact third parties, be aware of what do I want, not what do the partners possibly want, but what do you want for yourself.
Well, thank you kindly, Richard, for being here today and giving us time and your expertise in sharing. So thank you very much.
Okay, have a nice day. Success with the workshop.
Thank you very much. So if anybody has still questions or suggestions for Richard, feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A. We'll make sure he will be enabled to provide some answers. So Marcella, we're going to the next part of today's training, which is basically also addressing a very interesting topic about training itself. So we have been inviting Gerlinde. So Gerlinde, if you can switch on your video and sound, that would be really great that we can see and hear you.
The sound, but
That's the sound. Okay. That's the most important one.
I think you do you have to give me clearance for the camera, because I don't think.
As long as we can still hear you, and hopefully you can also see your presentation running. Marcella is managing the buttons for you.
Okay.
So if that's all right, we can start. And
yeah, I don't know why the camera doesn't work.
It could be that you have the video thingy on. Yeah, there you are. Hi.
Okay. Hello, everybody.
We see you.
Okay, my name is Gerlinde van Vilsteren, and I work also at Wageningen University and Research at the Department of Co-Creating Value and Impact. And that basically means that we support our colleagues at the university side as well as the research side to get the results of their research to society. So that involves, for instance, the work what Richard referred to, so patenting, starting new spin-offs, stuff like that. Also on the non-financial side, so we also do a lot of work on citizen science, science shops, things like that, working for SMEs. But we also work a lot with education, because education is a very, very good way to get knowledge into society. Now, I've worked all my life at the crossroads of education, research, and impact. And over the last years, I always did something in relation to the bio-based economy. And that was always on the link between bio-based and education. And in 2018, we started also at Wageningen a master course, bio-based sciences. And that is a combination of plant production, chemistry, biorefinery, so the chemical technical side, as well as economics. And we did that for a reason, this multidisciplinary approach, because we think that is the key to success if you want to be successful in the bio-based economy. Now, I will go into that also in the next slides, but then you know a little bit on where I'm standing. Next slide. I think over the last 30 years, we did a lot of research already at Wageningen University and research on bio-based materials, bio-based additives. And we learned that it's very difficult to have good technology or good technological solutions, but to bring them to the market. When I started my first interviews with the chemistry industry in the late century, so in the 90s, the people were picking up the phone. They said, "Yeah, but why should we do something with vegetable oils or with hemp or anything?" Like, we have so much fossil resources. They are cheap, they're abundantly available. So why invest in bio-based? It's only difficult, etc., etc. But that changed a lot over the last years, and that's why I included this picture. The general idea is, at this moment, we have to step away from fossil, and we have three main new sources for carbon. A part is bio-based, a part is carbon dioxide based, so we recycle air capture or something like that, and a big part will be recycling. And the fact that this is now a very widely recognized approach has also an impact on education. So over the last years, we educated and trained our young people, for instance, in chemical engineering, to work with fossil resources, and now we have to change that education and make sure that they know how to work with bio-based materials. And you probably all know that's much more difficult. Next slide. Yeah, we have very different resources in the biochem with bioresources. It's a much more diverse resource than fossil resources are, and now that has an impact on what you teach young people. But also it's important to realize that there is a very big employment in the bio-based economy, and that will be a growing one. And we do not only need to learn young people new skills and expertises, but also a lot of people who are already working in the, for instance, chemical industry. They also have to adjust their expertise to be able to work more with bio-based materials. What is also important, I will not go too much in detail in the next slides, but I think entrepreneurial skills are also very important for people in bio-based economy. Mainly because of two reasons. One reason is that you need entrepreneurial people when it's a difficult task. People need to be very optimistic and seizing a lot of opportunities, because there is a lot of difficulties and a lot of obstacles. And if you have creative entrepreneurial people, it's easier to overcome those than the more reluctant people. And the other thing which is important for entrepreneurial skills is that we have a lot of new opportunities, for instance, in coastal areas or in areas in Europe with a lot of natural resources like wood or whatever. And those are not maybe the regions with a very industrial mindset, but they now have, with the bioresources, a new position in the market of resources, and it takes entrepreneurial people to seize that opportunity. Next slide. When I was asked by Marcella, I was thinking, what are for us at Wageningen University Research the main things around about knowledge, and we think that knowledge is very important to accelerate the transition from fossil to fuel, from fossil to bio-based, sorry. But it's important to realize that it's just one of the drivers, because you can have a lot of knowledge, but if there are financial, legal, or societal hurdles, you will never come to a successful implementation. I will address all four, and then I go more into detail. The other thing is that the knowledge of the bioresources is needed in industry, government, education, and research. And I'll come back to that later. But if you have an industry with a lot of knowledge, but in the government there is none, then you still have a problem. You need knowledge on different expertises, what we call the T-shaped skills, and you need knowledge of all educational levels, and including, as I said before, continuing education. So the human capital agenda, as we call it in the Netherlands, is a very important part of that. Going to the system thinking, one of the things which I think is very important, that you not look zoom in to a very small part of the value chain, but that you look at the value chain as a system. And in the Netherlands, we have now a new big growth fund program, and there we adjusted the term value chains to value circles, stressing that it is a circle, that in the end, the product which you produce and when it's end of its life, it should be one way or the other be a new resource to start the circle over and over again. I'm not going to in detail on this value chain of value circle, but this is on biofuels. But it is very important that you understand all the parts of the value chain and all the choices which also are made. And this is illustrated on the right side in the bottom. At a certain moment in time, in the value chain, for instance, with oils, if you have a very good quality oil, you have other opportunities to sell it than if you have a low quality oil. And you have to take that into account. So, what are the market opportunities for your product? And if there is some chain where there is a higher added value and you can make more money that way, then you will have a shift to that market. And that financial or more commercial way of thinking, but is also important to take into account when you are developing a new product for a new value chain. And we see over and over again that especially people from research are very enthusiastic about a new technological finding, but they never thought about what is the market, how will the production chain, how will it look like? What are the transport costs? What are the logistics? Things like that. And as I said, if you have a very weak link in the chain, you won't have a chain. It will break very easily. So you have to take everything into account. That makes it very difficult to get a new product of a value chain up and running. But still, I think we need to do it all together, because we have to shift away from the fossil resources. What we do in the Netherlands is we pick a specific problem in one of the value chains and then start a learning community around that topic. And maybe then the next slide. What we mean by a learning community is that we pick a problem, we make a consortium of researchers, students, lecturers, and employees who are already working in industry or government, and we try to solve that problem all together. And that results in learning for everybody. So not only the students learn, but also the researchers and also the people who are already working in industry and government. We together innovate and we together work on that specific problem. And the very big advantage of this way of working is that it's very stimulating, and everybody gets in the end very enthusiastic about working together. The drawback is that it takes a lot of energy to organize this, but especially as in education, you have a very strict agenda, and the study programs are this month we do this, and next month we do that, and then if you have to combine that with the agenda of industry, that's a challenge. But once you fix that, it's a very good way of working together, and it keeps everybody with the feet on the ground, because students or researchers tend to maybe get ahead with their ideas and don't think about can it work on a large scale? Is it legally allowed? Will it be cost effective? And when you work on such a problem in such a combination of people, then those problems get at the table very quickly. I think that explains also, or is also the background to the choices we've made in setting up our master program, Bio-Based Sciences. We approach it from a multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary approach. So it's not only having a lot of knowledge about technology or chemistry, but you also have to have some expertise on legal issues, on economical, financial issues, etc. Next slide. This is a very full slide. I'm not going to explain everything, but it's we did interviews with Dutch chemical industries in 23 and 24 to look at the industry perspective. What are their ideas about what they expect of educational institutes? What expertise and skills do they expect of the newly graduates? And what are their ideas about their own learning path? If they are in the company and they are working, is there still a need to learn more? Now, the first conclusion was, and that was for me, working for a longer time in bio-based economy, a very good conclusion. All the chemical industry were acknowledging that they had to do something with bioresources. So no one was saying, "Now we keep it to the fossils, and no, bioresources too difficult. We are not going to be involved." Now they all said, sometimes with a very small amount, but they all were looking into bioresources. So that was the big plus. Then they all acknowledged the fact that they need multidisciplinary graduates from the university or universities of applied sciences or from vocational institutes. So only being very good at the technical thing is not enough. They need to have a broader scope. Something which disappointed me a bit was that they said, we don't need to train ourselves. We learn a lot. We do a lot of learning on the job, and we are not directly interested in following all courses to learn more about bioresources themselves. So high expectations for the new employees, but they were very satisfied with their own skills and expertises. And I think for the rest, it's not relevant to discuss that now. So please, the next slide. As I manage the learning communities as a way of working with industry and education. This is another example. It's a different approach, student challenges. Maybe the next slide, then it's easier to explain. We started in, I think, 2018-19, the BISCI, and that's a student challenge for bio-based, and it's a system a bit like the Eurosong Festival. You start with the national final, and then all the national winners go to the European final. The national finals are organized with different organizations. In the Netherlands, it was the TKI, and it will be the new Grow Fund. The European final is organized with the Bio-Based Industry Consortium. And the nice thing about it is that it, on one side, stimulates the entrepreneurship with students. They can choose their own topic within bio-based economy. And yeah, some are working with mycelia, others are working with fibers. Everybody thinks of something different. And then they present their ideas to the industry members of the bio-based industry consortium. And then they have a discussion on how much potential is there, and sometimes there are follow-up meetings between the students and the industry. But it's a nice way to close the gap between students, lecturers, and industry. Then next slide. I've referred to it before, but if you want to study or train people in bio-based economy, you really need what we call the T-shaped skills. So they need to have deep knowledge on legal, business, chemistry, whatever, and they have to have also some broad knowledge so that they can discuss. For instance, if you are a chemist, you need to have some knowledge of business models so that you can speak to someone who's has this background in business and finance in order to discuss, for instance, how you will set up the value circle. What are the problems, the hurdles to overcome? Now, if you keep as a worker or as a student to a very small expertise, it's very difficult to be, I think, successful in this new industry. Then the last slide. I already mentioned it before. In the Netherlands last year, the bio-based circular as a growth fund program started. It's a combination of a lot of industry, smaller and bigger, working on sugar-based derivatives, which can be used for developing new bio-based materials, so resins, but also building materials, packaging materials, etc. And a big part of the program is looking into research questions and also scale-up questions. But what we added was the human capital agenda, so that with all the research projects, there will be a link to people who are still in the schools, also the different levels, vocational education, universities of applied science, and academic universities. So that what I've shown before, that learning communities can be formed around specific topics, and that in the end everybody learns. And what I always think is also very important, that's also on the scale of Europe, we invest a lot of money in developing new knowledge, developing a lot of research outcomes. And we hope that it results in new industrial applications, so new products, new markets. But if you don't have the people who are educated in such a way that they really can do the work, then it will not be effective. So you need the knowledge, but you also need the people, and it's best to develop that jointly. That's what we do in a human capital agenda and with the learning communities. And it's also a very nice way of working. It's when I started the discussion with industry, in the beginning they're often very reluctant and they see a lot of problems and it may cost them too much time and blah blah blah. But in the end, when they really did a job of a project together with students, they most of the time are very enthusiastic because the students bring in new ideas, they ask questions others might not ask, and yeah, in the end, it most of the time works very well. And also for there's one big benefit for the industry, which maybe 10 years ago was not so much a thing. But now we see the war on talent becoming bigger and bigger. So if the companies work together with the students and then they see some students say, oh, they are very good, then they offer them a job. And for companies, that's also important that they find good new employers for their future. So a lot of information, but that was it. Thank you.
So definitely in a nutshell, thank you very much, Gelinde. So like with the others, we have some questions prepared, but also taking some from our attendees. I did pick up on something that Piotr Jurga posted in the Q&A, and it kind of reflects that if we are talking about bio-based and we're talking about multiple countries, you can imagine that the Netherlands have a very different set of biomass resources than, for instance, Romania or Poland or somebody who's not in the sea. So there is this take on insights on how the bioeconomy sector is kind of identifying which biomass sources play a role. But of course, there's the thing about opportunities as well as, okay, so how to address that. So could you explain a little bit about that from the Dutch perspective, if you have any insight on that that you could share there?
I don't know, I'm not sure whether I understand you well. I agree there are different types of biomass in the different regions of Europe. But your question is how that relates to what I was discussing?
Yeah, so there's the point about you talk about value creation and picking on relevant sectors to promote a bioeconomy. So how the literal question from Piotr is insights on the biorefinery sector in the Netherlands and which biomass resources play a key role there, knowing that we have different biomass resources than if you are in another country, another region.
Yeah. I'm just thinking where to start. Now, one important thing on biorefinery is, and I think that's not so much related to one type of bioresources or another, but it's very important to realize always if you have a rough biosource, straw, wood, grass, shells, whatever. In the raw form, it often contains a lot of water, or it contains a lot of air. And sometimes people think, yeah, we're going to collect everything from everywhere, and they collect it on a central point, and there we're going to do the biorefinery. But then you have to transport a lot of air and water over long distances, and then there are two drawbacks. That is very costly, and again, that's also not very sustainable. And if you look to such a problem only from a technical point of view, it doesn't matter. You can transport it. You can do the biorefinery, and then you do the second steps in the product chain. But if you look from a more system thinking way, and you look really at the value chain, then you realize, it's not a very effective way to transport so much air and water, and then decentral biorefinery might be more relevant, so that you get most of the water out, or you compress it in such a way that you don't transport a lot of air. And those concepts, yeah, if you are working with different type of resources, it will be different if you do something in Romania or in the Netherlands. But I think the basic ideas are quite similar. But I'm not sure whether I can answer the questions now.
But definitely good on some insights there. So thank you for sharing. So there are quite a number of key elements that you mentioned to accelerate transitioning and the role of knowledge, which are very well addressed. So thinking about the people in the room here are very eager to take on knowledge and embed it in their own bioeconomy strategy, the action plans. So from your point of view, from your role here in Wageningen, what do you think are the essentials in any training and education?
Yeah, the system thinking, and if you you look only on the technology if you only look from the technology perspective, you will not be very successful in really getting something up and running. And and we know at Wageningen that there is, and that's what I said in the beginning, knowledge is a very important part, but legislation is also very important. And financial support sometimes, because if you we call this a transition, and that's because it's not just introducing a new product in an existing market based on existing resources. I think you might be familiar with the product of Avantium, which is a Dutch company producing PEF, which is a replacement for PET and can be used in soft drink bottles. And then the resources are new, the product is new, the production line is new, the market where it's used is new. And if you want to do it like that, it's very, very difficult. And it turns out also they're working on it for 20 years, and now it really starts to be successful. But it takes a long shot to get a new product in a new market, and that's you can look at it and think, oh, it's too difficult, let's not do it. I think it's very difficult, but still we need to do it. But be aware of all the difficulties, and don't be surprised after a couple of years of I have optimized my the chemistry, for instance, but I totally forgot about the finances, or about we have, for instance, in the student challenges, we sometimes have a student group very enthusiastic about something they are going to produce. But they have a very watery solution, and then they are going to dry it, and then they have an end product, and then they do something with that. But they don't think if you dry a very watery solution, how much energy that will cost. So in the end, you may think that you produce something which is sustainable. So the end product as such might be sustainable, but the production method is not sustainable at all. You have to take that in account. And if the students we train realize such things, then we are satisfied.
Yeah, it's really integrating that whole system perspective in upping the skills, and not only for the students, but continuous learning is also something that you flag there.
For all of us.
For all of us, and not only for the I don't know, the engineers or the technical developers within a company, but also how you can communicate with funders and policymakers, and other parts of the industry. Yeah, that's also something I hear strongly from your story.
Yeah, and maybe to go back to the policymakers, a couple of years ago in the Netherlands, we all wanted to be more sustainable, but people from the government thought that they could electrify all transport. So for normal cars for families, etc., that's okay. But if the heavy transport, if you want to use electrical energy there, it's pretty complex. For lorries, might be done, but if you want to have ships or airplanes, electrical, and it's you hope that the people who are working in policy at our, at least Dutch government, have a bit of understanding why some technical changes will work in a certain sector or not. And that's it's always a lot of discussion.
Yeah, it's good to take consequences into account. So there is a question about plant production in the Q&A, but I think it's for the topic of conversation, probably better that we answer that in the sideline. But similarly as to the other ones, so do you have like an afterburner for the attendees? For sure they should remember this when leaving the meeting, Gerlinde?
I don't know if the people now participating are already collaborating with education in their own regions, educational institutes. But if they are not, then I would really advise them to do so.
Yeah, definitely to take on that multi-angle viewpoint. So thank you very much, Gerlinde, for your time and sharing your insights as a value creation officer here in Wageningen, and hopefully we can further collaborate on this within the CEE2ACT context.
Okay, thank you.
So having said that, we are drawing to a close of this training session. If you can put on the next slide, Marcella. Because we have heard a lot of things today from different angles. It is all related to each other, the knowledge transfer bits. Gerlinde said it, Jonas said it, Jacob said it, Richard said it. It's not all only about tech stuff. It's not only about protection. It's very much something that is integrated throughout how you want to approach bioeconomy and what is needed, what choices need to be made, but for sure to ensure that you know the right people, you have knowledge about what works and how you can transfer and exchange that. So that will remain some of the most important recommendations coming from CEE2ACT. So getting a little bit back about continuing the conversation about knowledge and knowledge transfer. So we are very much inviting you, if you haven't done so, to use the template for the knowledge transfer skills profiling, to gain a little bit of more insight in how we're doing it, how you can use that as a conversation starter within your own company, within your hub. And if you share it with us by next week, you are qualifying for the certificate of participation. So Barkey McBioplastic already got it. Anyway, but it is a good reminder of ourselves that is very useful to keep knowledge as a top priority moving forward. And as today has shown, there are many venues where we can achieve that. So having said that, CEE2ACT is definitely not over with this training. All materials are being made available, so you can copy, translate, replicate anything you want. We are here to support you as well in the remainder of the project and hopefully also thereafter. But it's also the workshop series are launching in March and April. Please go there, be part of it. And for sure, working towards the memory of understanding, the collaboration, the firming up of appreciating this bottom-up approach in developing the bioeconomy. So let's keep on transferring that. So you will be receiving an email with a short evaluation survey, because we are also very eager to see how this landed and what you think is important moving forward. There are some there will be some other words, and we hope to see you in one of the next CEE2ACT activities, and hopefully continue to work together. Did I miss anything? I'm looking at Jacob, Jonas, Vera, and Marcella, who have been wonderful in collaborating with us in this training preparation. Covered everything? Okay, then we close this training session. We get back to you, don't worry, and give you back 5 minutes of your time for today. And looking forward to see you again. Have a wonderful afternoon.